It is officially mailbag time on Locked On Anaheim Ducks. You've got some questions. I will try to answer them on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm currently the public address voice for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Also been covering minor league hockey for about a decade. Help out with Defend the Nest, covering the San Diego Gulls. And you know what? I mentioned this. It's time for a mailbag. So that's all this episode is going to be, because I've gotten quite a few questions here and I will try to answer them as best as possible. So thanks to all of you that sent questions either on my phone or on Twitter or email. Really appreciative of all the questions. So you know what? Let's just dive right in. Let's dive in and get right to it. First question comes from Tom. Yep. He always has some pretty good questions. So shout out to Tom for always giving some pretty solid questions. This first one from Tom, and this is a pretty interesting question. So I'm just going to go with the whole thing. With having three extremely talented offensive-minded D-men coming up to be the future of the Ducks' blue line, could you see a potential problem in that the defense can be too offensive-minded and not enough stay-at-home players that can potentially allow a multitude of enemy rushes? That's a good question, and honestly, I think the answer is yes. You don't want too many guys that are not stay-at-home. I think it'd be prudent for the Ducks to try to go after some stay-at-home defensemen, which leads to a question that I'm going to get to. But the Ducks, over the past few years, yes, they've had defensemen that tend to be offensive-minded. And that can be both good and bad. It can be good for the power play if you have someone that's very good at quarterbacking the power play. It's good if you have someone that can patrol the blue lines and rifle off some kind of quality shots from that area. And it's good to have dynamic playmaking defensemen because they are going to create offense. Look at Olen Zellweger. Zellweger is one of the best skaters out there, and he was generating a ton of offense the other night, even though they didn't score any goals against Minnesota. He was there going from the high slot or from the high boards to the low boards, on the high dashers. And he was moving around. And as a result of that, he found himself fairly open a couple of times, getting some quality high danger shots off. None of them went in, but those are the kind of players you want if you're offensive minded. But if you're defensive minded, the Ducks don't really have that right now. As we've seen, their defense is it's rather lacking. Yeah, let's go with that. It's lacking. Last season, the Ducks broke a record for most shots allowed in a season. This year, they're not even close to that, but they are allowing a lot of high danger chances. And there's not enough players that are stay-at-home. There's been a lot of enemy rushes on the other side. That doesn't quite have to do with defensemen. It does a little bit. But the Ducks also need some stay-at-home, not stay-at-home, but they need some forwards that can help out on the back check. Alex Killorn, definitely one of those players that has not been good defensively. He's been caught flat-footed numerous times this season. There's been other players that have been caught flat-footed, but recently it's been Killorn. So the Ducks do need someone that can be stay-at-home, someone that can help out on the defensive end, which leads to this next question that I got on the email from Keith. So thanks once again for this. Hey, Jason, aside from Macklin Celebrini, who are some other players that the Ducks could be looking for with a top 5 pick? And what are some sleeper picks with their second first-round pick? I'm going to go with the first question first. Who can the Ducks possibly get with that first pick? So the Ducks do currently have 2 first-round picks. One of them is, at this point, guaranteed to be a top 5, but I want that first or second pick because Macklin Celebrini would turn around a team, and he is by far the best skater in this season's draft. I mean, it's not even close. But after that, I would say the Ducks could be looking at Zane Parekh. That would be kind of a stretch because he's top 10, and he plays with the Saginaw Spirit right now. Very good skating ability. One of the better defensemen in the draft. Really active stick. Body positioning is good. He's a fantastic skater. One of the best skaters in this year's draft. Kind of similar-ish to Olin Zellweger a little bit. Also has a good IQ. Also can read the ice very well. So maybe Zane Parekh from Saginaw is someone the Ducks could look to. Another player that I really like Sam Dickinson from the London Knights. You know, super solid defenseman, super good skater, and he has good vision. He sees the plays in front of him easily, and I could see him getting some top minutes. If he were to play in San Diego, he could easily get 23, 24 minutes. If the Ducks are looking for someone to eat minutes, and I know they are, then yeah, maybe put Fowler out to the wayside and pick up someone that has a ceiling of being a top pairing defenseman. Now, the second part of that question, who are some sleepers that the Ducks could look at later on in the draft? Do you notice I'm leaning towards defensemen here? Yeah, they need help defensively. Someone that I saw that's kind of a sleeper pick that I actually kind of like, and I was looking at defensemen recently. I know some folks don't like looking at the U.S. developmental program. I think there's some good picks from that U.S. program, and one of them that could be a sleeper, Cole Hudson. Now, I've seen some mock drafts have Hudson in the late teens, early 20s. I've seen that have him in the mid-20s. Cole Hudson is undersized. He's only 5'10", $165, but for his size, he gets in the dirty areas. Like, someone his size should not be putting his body on the line every night. Someone his size shouldn't be battling the way he does, but he does. He gets to the dirty areas. He's not afraid to get into those puck battles, which he has done frequently this season in the U.S. program. He battles. Like, he gets into the corners and will try to knock pucks loose and try to gain control, which goes into something else I like about him. Very active stick, but also a super good IQ. Skating is above average. I mean, not as good as other players that I've mentioned. I mean, not as good as a Sam Dickinson skating, not as good as a Zane skating. But this is another defenseman that is very good at skating. And when I think of undersized defensemen, I think about Jamie Drysdale, who is also a very good skater. But I love the active stick, and I love the fact that he has great vision, and he tends to distribute more. Like, he doesn't look to shoot. But what I like is he brings a certain competitiveness defensively, and he does stay at home. I would call him a responsible, that's what I'm going to say. He's a responsible defenseman. And I think it would be very good for a lot of teams to try to go after someone of his caliber in the draft if they are looking for kind of that sleeper defenseman pick in the mid-20s. So, yeah, very good question. Thanks for that one. All right, we're going to head into the first intermission right now. You've got some more. I've got more questions to answer, and I'm going to try to get through all of them. So I will try to answer more of your questions on the other side. Now, a brief word from Indeed. And no matter how the last game went, anytime you take the ice, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements or else you don't pay. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Once again, go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez on this Mailbag episode. And this is how we are closing off the week live from Acrisure Arena, home of the Coachella Valley Firebirds. And I know I always get these kind of, not questions, but comments saying like, man, you work really hard. Like, I did actually get this question like, how's it going in Coachella Valley? You know what? I'll answer that right now. It's going pretty well. Firebirds are in first place. I've said this before, but getting to do public address for a AHL team has been like a dream come true. Obviously one step away from the National Hockey League, but it has been a blast getting to do public address. So I love it. Thanks for that. All right, more questions. Yeah. All right. I don't know about this one. This question I got last week after the Ducks were caved in by the Blackhawks. Is it reasonable to believe that Chicago is further along in their rebuild? No. They're not further along. Chicago only has Connor Bedard, and that's it. The reason that they are not like top of the line as far as prospects is because they only have the one prospect, and that is it. Chicago doesn't have much depth. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Chicago Blackhawks, like third, fourth lines, there's nothing there. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Rockford Ice Hogs, they don't have much depth either in the AHL level. Typically, a team like that should have prospects that are more highly touted, and there just isn't. Chicago's still going to be bad for a while. Chicago is worse than the Ducks right now. That's with Connor Bedard on their team. Imagine if Connor Bedard was on the Ducks. They would have like 10, 15 more points, and Chicago would have 15 points less. And they're worse than the Ducks. So I would say long term, Anaheim is further along in the rebuild. And I don't think it's close. All right. Next question. This one coming from Tom once again. So thanks, buddy, for this one. Simple question. Is Lukas Dostal ready to be a number one goaltender? Short answer, yeah. Long answer, absolutely. I think Lukas Dostal is just about ready to be a number one goaltender. I would say he's about a year away, or he's almost there. But I think next season, he should get more games. And I've been saying this for this season. Dostal should get more starts. It is not a tandem because John Gibson has played more games this season. That's a fact. John Gibson this season has skated about like a few more games. Looking at both, Lukas Dostal has played in 34 games, and John Gibson, I saw John Gibson somewhere. Oh, he's played in 43 games. So 43 and 34. Not quite a goalie tandem type of situation. I mean, Gibby is getting more minutes, more playing time. So far this season, Gibby has 2,377 minutes, and Dostal has 1,724. Dostal is good at high danger save percentages. He's just above league average. He's at an 811 high danger save percentage. League average is 809, so he's slightly above average there. Unfortunately, as far as expected goals, Gibby not quite top of the list. In fact, he's slightly below average. John Gibson, according to HockeyStatCards.com, John Gibson is at a negative .10, so he's given up 4.3 goals more than expected. Lukas Dostal, he's given up 6 more goals than expected, a negative 0.18. So just below average, but not by much. I mean, they're not bad goalies by any stretch, but this recent stretch of games lately, I do not put all on the goalies. Part of the reason for those stats is because the defense has left the Ducks out to dry. And the Ducks goalies, I mean, give John Gibson a taser. Give Lukas Dostal a taser for all I care. Dostal has been left out to dry so much over his last couple of starts. And I feel bad for Dostal because it is really affecting his numbers big time. But I think he's still ready to be a number 1 goaltender. And Dostal doesn't give up. He doesn't give up on plays. And he tries to look at the bright side of things. So, yeah, I do think Dostal is ready to be a number 1 goaltender. All right. Thanks, Tom, for that one. Next question. Let's see, which one do I want to answer? I'm going to go with Dinner. So, Dinner Bloom asks a couple questions. So, I'm going to answer his first one. What changes do you see happening to the Anaheim roster after this season? How will the team improve its on-ice discipline? Oh boy. Okay. Changes to the roster. There's going to be an overhaul in some spots. Defensively, the Ducks need to take a big swing on the draft because defense is pretty solid. I say the defense is a little bit better in the draft this season than it was last season. And it's never bad to have competition to try to get some more good defensemen. Changes. Henrique is gone. Carrick is gone. I think a lot of other guys are going to be gone as well from Anaheim because Silfverberg, he might not come back. And if he does, it'll be for a lot less money. Oh, boy. Gustav Lindstrom, I don't think is going to come back. He's our RFA, but I don't know if he's going to come back. Jackson Lacombe should come back. He's been solid. William Lagesson, probably not coming back. Eero Vakanainen, probably not coming back. So the Ducks are going to have to make some big changes on defense. And they got to take some swings. And it's going to have to be either by trade or by free agency. And free agency doesn't look that good on defense this season. So I think they're going to have to rely on the young kids this year. So I think that's what's going to change. Another part of that question is how will the team improve its on-ice discipline? I think there's going to have to be some change in the coaching staff. I do think so, which leads to another question that I got, but it's going to have to start with Greg Cronin really instilling not taking the dumb penalties, and it's going to have to be up to the players themselves to become accountable. And maybe it's got to come from a player change as well. Because Gudas is more of a bruiser, and he's the kind of player with the tendency to kind of take things a bit far. So I think it comes from the coaches, it comes from the players, but that might have to be a way to improve its on-ice discipline. But coaching changes, might they have to get rid of Cronin after one season? I say no, not yet. I would still give Coach Cronin another year or two before debating on getting rid of him. But assistants, I think it's past their time to stick around. Assistants should be done. Which leads to this question that I got from Jonas Tawney. So thank you for this question. Where does the team go after this season? Head coaching change? Are we giving Cronin a bad rep after a bad season? Free agency signings? Do the Ducks become playoff contenders next season? Draft picks? A lot of questions there. I also got this question about Coach Newell Brown from Luis Alberto Johansson. Should Newell Brown be fired at the end of the season? If so, who's your recommendations to replace him with? So you both kind of asked about coaching. So I'm going to start with Newell Brown. In a word, yes. The special teams have been statistically awful. They've been awful on paper. The eye test, it looks even worse. There have been so many times where the power play has looked sloppy. The penalty killing has looked worse. I've mentioned this with Seth Topol from Locked On Wild. You cannot have 2.5 minute lengths of, shifts where the puck doesn't leave the zone. You really can't have that. Especially in the penalty kill. What are they doing? An entire 2 minute on the penalty kill, and you have the puck on your stick and you don't chuck it out? It's not hard. It is not rocket science. Puck on stick. Pitchfork the puck out. Don't just have it on your stick. Don't just go lackadaisical. Do something with it. That's how bad the penalty kill has been, and it's been even worse without Sam Carrick. So I would say assistant for that team needs to change. Which goes into another part. Who would I look for as far as assistant coaches? I'll give a couple of answers there. Brad Shaw. I think he's more of a maybe NHL head coach type, but he's currently an associate coach with the Philadelphia Flyers. He's done very well. He was an assistant with the St. Louis Blues on their Western Conference run in 2016. He was the assistant for the Blue Jackets, and right now he's assistant coach with Philadelphia, and that's someone that I think is very good behind the bench and can help the discipline. Another coach that I really like, and this is a little bit, recency bias because I just saw him, is Neil Graham, the head coach for the Texas Stars, the AHL team. Look, the Texas Stars have one of the best power plays in the entire American Hockey League. We saw this on the recent game against the Firebirds Wednesday night. Texas looks very, very good on the power play. Neil Graham has a certain discipline when it comes to those kind of plays. He really gets it in. Keep the puck in the zone. Keep it simple. Make the passes simple. Watching Texas's power play, it's kind of nice because they keep it simple. Pass all around. Look for the good shot. Get pucks towards the net and see what happens. And that's how one of Texas's goals happened on this game that I just saw, is get it towards the net, get guys in front of the goalie, have a good screen, and go for a rebound. So that's someone that I'm looking to see. Neil Graham should get a job in the NHL because he's pretty good. So that's a name that I was looking at. Someone else that I actually really like, Ryan Craig, who is the current head coach of the Henderson Silver Knights. Another great systems coach, and he's a young coach. He's only played up until a couple of years ago. He was part of the Lake Erie Monsters championship team in 2016 and has also instilled a very good, maybe not culture is the word, but he's developed a good rapport with the Henderson Silver Knights. So maybe that's another name that's out there that could be a good assistant coach in the National Hockey League. So just some names that I've thrown around that I've thought about that I thought would be good assistant coaches in the National Hockey League. I know it's Western Conference. These are two guys that I've seen recently, but just looking at their style, looking at their attitude, looking at how much the players love playing for them, I could see either of those guys being successful behind the bench, behind an NHL bench. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. As far as giving Cronin a bad rep, you know what? I'm going to finish answering that question because we're up against it. So we're going to head to the second intermission right now. I'm going to continue with the question from Jonas Tani. Stay locked in. Now a brief word from FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the NCAA tourney. And we're in March, and it is madness because whether you're betting on a big upset or a number one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, futures. You can even pick who's going to win it all. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Arizona has a pretty good chance. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets and have a shining moment. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, And please, folks, gamble responsibly. Welcome back to Locked On Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's continue with the mailbag. Are we giving Cronin a bad rep after a bad season? Absolutely we are. The special teams, as I just mentioned, has been horrible. Some of that goes on Cronin. A lot of that goes on the assistant coaches. So that's who's going to get the bad rep. Free agency signings. Well, I'm glad you asked me that because I happened to look at free agency signings just the other night with Seth Topol, and the free agent market is kind of dry this offseason. I don't see a lot of good guys out there, to be very honest. I mean, the best names out there as far as free agents, I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot that I'm confident with this coming off season. I mean, Steven Stamkos is a bit older, but he's still going to request a bit of money. The one name that teams are going to go after, but they might spend a lot, Sam Reinhart from the Florida Panthers, who is going to be a 50 goal scorer. I mean, who saw that coming? Who saw Sam Reinhart being a 50 goal scorer for the Florida Panthers this season? I certainly did it. But he's an unrestricted free agent. He's going to garner a big contract, and rightfully so. I think a lot of teams would be foaming at the mouth to give him a long-term contract at a good amount. I mean, look at Sam Reinhart. Almost 50 goals. He's making 6.5 this season. I wouldn't mind seeing any team, loosen the purse strings and give him some good money. And even the last 3 seasons in Florida, 33 goals, 31 goals. He will get 50 this season. He's been a big part, maybe the main reason why Florida has had the success they've had this season. So I would look for him to get a big, big, big contract. The Ducks have the money to spend. They have the cap space. So I'm just saying. That's maybe the only one. Also, do the Ducks become playoff contenders next season? I hate this question. I hate being honest. No, I don't see them being playoff contenders next season. I still think they have a bit of work to do. I think it'll take 2 seasons. I don't see it for 2025, but I do see it for 2026 if I'm just being honest. And I know fans hate when I'm honest here, but I just don't see it next year either. All right. We have a couple more questions. One from Denor. What's the plan for Max Jones? He's tailed off badly the last 2 seasons after a strong start to his career. There's some truth to that. Will Anaheim keep him or trade him? If the Ducks keep him, who should he be paired with to improve his numbers? Okay, that's a good question. I think if the Ducks do keep him, he's probably going to make the same amount of money. So I think having a value player. That's what I'm going to go with. He's a value player that you don't have to spend too much on in order to keep him. So that's good right there. Max Jones, he's not even making like $2 million this season. I think it's like 1.3 million this season, and he is an RFA. So if the Ducks can keep him for about $1.1 million, I'm fine with that. He's still 26. Who do I want to see him paired with? You got to stick Max Jones with Isaac Lundestrom. Lundestrom, I still think, is an underrated center and a good depth player. So I think Jonesy with Lundestrom would be good. But also, maybe kickstart that line. I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Ryan Strome with Max Jones, because they could kind of feed off each other. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. So, good question. Thank you to Denor for that one. I'm just going to end with the silly one because why the heck not? If the team you covered had a uniform whose dominant color was orange, could those uniforms be nicknamed Ducks à l'Orange? Funny, DC. I mean, I am not a fan of the orange myself. I prefer the eggplant and jade, but that's just me and a lot of other fans. Which leads to my final question here, which I get asked this all the time. I actually got asked this twice. Should the Ducks go back to their original jerseys? Yes, I get asked this all the time. Yes, absolutely they should. I've been saying this for years. Go with the OG colors. That's the fans want it. Look what the Coyotes did. The fans wanted the Coyotes to go back to their original jerseys, and Arizona went from one of the worst jerseys in the NHL to one of the best jerseys in the National Hockey League. So it's time for the Ducks to do the same. Go back to the original. You know that's the jersey that most fans wear when they go to games, is the original, or the 25th jersey, which is my favorite, or this year's 30th, which is also very good. And if this wasn't a season to forget, then I'd be getting 30th gear myself. But this is a season to forget for the Ducks. I hate to say it. All right, we're going to wrap up the week with that. Once again, thank you all for your questions. I was surprised I got that many questions. So thanks to all of you for sending them in. I greatly, greatly appreciate, all the kind words. And I'll even reply to like some of the comments that I got from YouTube. I'll just go over some of like the nice comments here because, why the hell not? It's Friday, mailbag, whatever. I like the one that said, I score more than the Ducks. Right now, yes, the Ducks are not scoring a whole lot of goals lately. Yeah, also, I like this comment. Denny from Minnesota, you have a really good show. I feel your pain. You and Seth have good chemistry. Look, thank you for feeling the pain. I've been hosting this for 5 years, and it's been 5 years of futility. It's not easy to try to stay positive on lost season after lost season, and I really try to stay positive as I can. And it's not easy. So thank you for those great comments. Really appreciative of that. All right, that's going to do it. I'm just going to stand up and stretch my legs, and you know what? It's the last episode of the week, whatever. Just a reminder, this podcast is free and available across all platforms. You can follow me on Twitter X at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter is at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. End of the week, I'm just going to be silly here. For Locked On Ducks, this is Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great weekend, everyone. Please remember to be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Ducks fly together. We're flying together, folks. Ah! Yep, there it is. Flying together.